Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate Day number 1129, 1129, May the 12th, 2020, Tuesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get to the news of the day, and then we're going to get right into my breakdown of the testimony of Michael Sussman. Sussman, the Rotten Reverend's lawyer from Perkins Coie. And I think you'll be very interested to hear some of the things he said in his testimony. But let's go ahead and get to some of the news of the day, and we'll get right into that. Well, yesterday Trump was in rare form. He walked out of the press conference after an insulting question by that Chinese reporter. I'm not sure where she's from, but the Asian reporter who's she's kind of like the female version of Jim Acosta. And I think Trump's had just about enough of her, and so he kind of went off on her and then walked out of the press conference. So I thought that was exactly what he should have done. And again, I don't know why he's allowing questions. If he was going to continue doing this, I would recommend to his press spokesman there, press secretary, whatever, is that if you're going to have those liberal reporters there, and he's going to do Q&A, that what you do is you pass out note cards to each of them. You let them write down a couple of the questions that they have. Then you collect them up, and then you have someone offside the stage from Trump's press office and let them go through the cards, and the ones that are actually legitimate questions, you let him answer those questions, and the ones that are BS, you toss them. So that's what I would do to put a stop to that. But yeah, he was in rare form yesterday. It was pretty funny. He's back to the good old Trump in the press conferences. He's not taking any crap, and that's good. Okay, so my oh my. More bad news for Silly Sally. Silly Sally. Yates. The newest information that's out there right now is suggesting that the first reporter to get the tip on the Flynn-Kislyak phone call was not Michael Isikoff. Up to this time, we believed that it was Michael Isikoff who was first given this information about the Flynn-Kislyak phone call. But yesterday we learned there was actually another reporter from the Washington Compost called Adam Entous, Entous. And we now understand that he has close ties to Silly Sally Yates. And Entous was on with Ricky Madcow, and they're talking about this issue. And he says that when this intelligence came in, which would be late December, early January, Yates saw the intelligence. Oh yeah? How do you know that? You'd have to be pretty close to Silly Sally as a reporter to be able to say firsthand that she personally saw the intelligence about the Kislyak-Flynn phone call. And to have that date right there, late December, early January, pretty much nails it. Because she got this information, as she tells us, on January the 5th at that little meeting where they laid out the plot to take down General Flynn, and following beyond that, the president himself, Trump. That's the meeting where they laid out the plan. And we also can tell now from Silly Sally's testimony to Congress, based on the information we now have from the recently released declassified documents, that Silly Sally was lying to Congress when she told them under oath in open hearings that Michael Flynn may have been compromised by Russia. She knew he had not. She had the transcript. And there was no such thing of a kind of him being compromised by Russia. Silly Sally has got a lot of problems right now. And one of the big problems she has is, unlike a lot of these characters who can point to the person above them, in the case of Silly Sally, it's probably not the case. Because as we know, Get Back Loretta Lynch, can't recall anything. And she's not stupid enough to write anything down. She learned from the Clintons. She's a close and loyal ally of the Clintons. And she has served with the Clintons for a long time. And so she's used to how you have to behave when you're working with horribly corrupt people. You don't talk and you don't write anything down. And you make sure that you distance yourself from the criminal activity. You let other people do the criminal activity, and you give yourself plausible deniability. So they can go ahead and call in Loretta. They're not going to find any documents unless she messed up. They're not going to find her with any meetings with more than 2 people where she said something. She certainly isn't going to remember anything. She can't remember anything. Every time the woman has been put under oath and asked questions, she either can't remember, can't recall. Can't remember, can't recall. Not aware of anything. Her mind is a blank. There's nothing there. So good luck, Silly Sally, trying to point the finger at your boss. Probably not going to happen. But Silly Sally is up to her eyeballs in the plots. She was in that January 5th meeting where they laid out the plot for how they were going to take out Trump and Flynn. She lied to Congress, and now it looks like either she personally leaked this stuff about the Flynn Kislyak transcript, or she had one of her henchmen do it, or henchwomen. But she certainly is this reporter is kind of throwing her under the bus here. Because he says when this intelligence came in, which would be late December, early January, Yates saw the intelligence. For him to know that she saw the intelligence, who would know that she saw the intelligence? She would, and maybe a couple people next to her, standing around her, or people who were also there who saw the intelligence. And my guess is it was a fairly small number of top-tier DOJ people who were looking at that transcript as early as the beginning of January. Now, he gets this information on or about the 9th. On or about the 9th. And when he gets it, he doesn't write the story. Because he looks at it and goes, okay, Flynn was having communications with the Russian ambassador. Okay, where's the story? That's what he's supposed to do. He's the incoming national security advisor. I don't see a story here. But it was 3 days later that they actually write the story, when I guess they get additional information. So, clearly, you can see how this time frame walks right into all of this. And, yeah, there's going to have to be some serious airing out of this. And this is probably what Attorney General Barr, John Durham are looking at right now and coming to the same conclusion. And as a result, we have a Fox News story coming on the back of this story saying that John Durham is now going full throttle on his investigation. And Attorney General Barr has now assigned Timothy Shea and Jeff Jensen to join the Durham investigation full-time. And it looks like Durham's got them looking very hard at the FISA warrant issues as well as other issues. Jensen, obviously, is going to be the one who's going to dig into the Flynn situation, while likely Timothy Shea is going to focus on the FOIA, while Durham continues looking at the wider picture. Now, remember, Barr just appointed Timothy Shea back a few months ago. He is the top prosecutor in the District of Criminals now. He's over all the prosecutors in the District of Criminals. So he'll be making sure that things are done correctly and that there won't be any shenanigans. He's the top prosecutor in D.C. And now you've got Jeff Jensen, and we already know what this guy's all about. I mean, this guy works quick, and he doesn't screw around. He's the one that told Barr, hey, you should drop the charges against Flynn. He got set up. And I mean, he just got put on this like about what? Like February or something? So it only took this guy 3 months. I mean, that's moving at light speed in D.C., working around the Department of Justice, the FBI. And the thing is, as I understand, Jensen was in the FBI. He was an FBI agent, special agent, for 10 years. Then he moved over to the legal side and became a DOJ attorney for 10 years. So this guy's got 10 years in the FBI, 10 years as a DOJ lawyer, and now he's a top prosecutor in that region of Missouri. And this guy obviously is a shit kicker, and he works fast. This guy gets results. You want results? Put Jeff Jensen on the job. This dude, I like this guy. I don't even know who he is, other than what we know. All I know is he got put on the job less than 3 months ago, and that's all it took him to unravel it. He had no problem taking the documents, giving them to Durham, giving them to Barr, and making his recommendation. Clearly, this guy doesn't care about the politics. Clearly, this guy is a white hat. He's on our team, basically. Clearly, there's no doubt about that. And now Durham, Barr is putting him on Durham's team full time, right along with the top prosecutor in D.C. So, yeah, there's obviously something going on here. They're obviously getting very, very close. There's no doubt at this point, with all that you see this kind of activity going on, there's no doubt that Durham obviously has a case, a criminal case. And it's a very vast criminal case with a lot of people, because the story goes on to talk about how Durham is just completely swamped, which is why he's been down here for the past, well, I guess since coronavirus started. He came down to D.C. and he's still down here. He's full throttle on this thing because there's a lot of things going on, a lot of things to look at. And, he's added a bunch of people to his team. I expect he'll add more. And this thing is definitely moving quickly in the right direction. And I don't think it's going to be too long now. I think that Barr and Durham both understand they do not want this to be, they do not want to come out after the general election kicks off, which is usually about the latter part of August, after the DNC convention. That's kind of the official start of the general election campaign officially. Because remember, Biden is not the nominee. He's the presumptive nominee. He's not the nominee yet at all. Until the Democrats actually anoint him, through the delegate process of being the nominee, he's still the presumptive nominee. So it'll be about usually it's about the 20th or so of August when they have their convention, 15th to 20th. So it'll be the latter part of August. And my guess is Barr and Durham want to at least have completed the body of work in their investigation by then, and to be able to come out and make a public statement as to what their findings are, and of course to then begin either laying the indictments or unsealing the indictments that are already there, that are just sealed. So of which I expect there's, I'm sure, many sealed indictments already, and more to come. So anyway, this looks like the status of the Durham investigation is right on track, moving full steam ahead. Also yesterday we had Devin Nunes sending over a criminal referral on Jimmy the unwitting idiot Clapper. Because now there's overwhelming evidence that he lied about briefing Obama on the Flynn-Kislyak phone call. And my guess is Durham and Timothy Shea now have that information as well, along with Attorney General Barr. And they're briefing Trump almost every day. And you can tell by the tweets that Trump sent out this Obamagate tweet 2 days ago. It's been trending number one on Twitter ever since. And now that we have these released records and other things that we found out, and of course Comey even says in one of his statements, in one of his many statements, he says it was Clapper who briefed Obama. He says that he was with Clapper and 2 or 3 other people. They had this discussion, and then he says then Clapper went and briefed the president. Well, Clapper says in his statement that he was not the one who briefed Obama. So, although now the evidence is pretty clear that he did. So, therefore, is another lie by Clapper. I mean, this guy does nothing but lie. Okay? I mean, this guy's never told the truth in his life. Right? He's been in the intelligence business for so long. He's been lying for so long that he doesn't know how to do anything else. He just lies all the time. And he lies when it's easier to tell the truth. He lies when there's no reason to lie. He just lies because that's what he does. This guy lies. I mean, just, nothing coming out of this guy's mouth is ever true. Ever. Of course, we had the hit piece by Upchuck Todd on Sunday morning on Attorney General Barr. And I'm sure he's not very happy about that. Taking him out of context, taking that statement, well, history is written by those who win. Yeah, the winners write the history. Of course they do. That's a normal, common statement. Everyone knows that's true. The winners do write the history. But Barr said more than that. He went on, after saying that, to say that basically, I think when anyone looks at this case and looks at what we did, they'll see that we did the right thing. And he explained himself very succinctly. There's no ambiguity, whatever that word is, about what he said. It's crystal clear. Barr makes it crystal clear. There was a lot of problems, and he lays them out. Not just in that interview, but previous interviews. And it's all going to come out. But still, it was a dirty move by Upchuck Todd. But what else would you expect? One thing that these deep staters should probably keep in mind is that while they may think that Trump is their target here, and they may be wanting to stick it a little bit to Attorney General Barr, these media people who are totally involved in the coup plot, and a lot of these left-wing Democrat politicians and people who want to continue to stay on that side of the issue, they have to remember that Barr and Durham are not, it's not like they're not aware of the slights that are being taken against them and this propaganda that's being run against them. They're quite aware of all this that's going on in the media. And I don't know if it were me, if I were one of those corrupt media figures or one of these corrupt Democrat politicians, that I would want to be pissing off Barr or Durham, especially if you're one of the coup plotters who were involved in all this, and like Obama coming out with that statement, that leaked phone call. I mean, if why you would want to, get Barr and Durham, to have an issue with you when you're in the middle of all this, I don't know. If it were me and I were Obama and all these coup plotters, I'd be keeping my mouth shut. I certainly wouldn't be making derogatory comments, negative comments about the two guys who can put my ass in jail. But that's what they're all doing because they're not very smart, clearly. And now that all this stuff is coming out here in the past week and a half or two, there will be more coming out this week. It's pretty obvious what happened here at the end of last week. Obama has been smoked out of his hole. Smoked out of his hole after all this time, laying low, keeping his head down, hoping this would all pass. He realizes now it ain't going to pass. And it all goes all the way to the tippy top. That's him. Obama knows what's coming down the road. And now that he's been smoked out of his hole, he'll only expose himself further by coming out and commenting on it. And Barr and Durham are going to be paying very close attention to every word he says. Now, I'm beginning to see a pattern now as I've read through the Podesta transcript and the Sussman transcript. The pattern I can see here is that these people are nervous when they're being interviewed under oath, and they lie. They lied under oath. Now, in the case of Sussman, the two primary interviewers on the Republican side were, again, Mike Conaway, but also Kash Patel, Devin Nunes's investigator. Now, what's interesting also about Sussman is he shows up with 4 lawyers. And the primary lawyer, number 1 lawyer, was this, I think her name's Catherine Rumler. That's Obama's lawyer. That's Obama's, hand-picked lawyer. Everywhere Obama goes, she goes. and you got to be a high level Democrat, or a high level Democrat who could expose Obama to get this Catherine Rimler, I think her name is, to get her as your chief counsel. But it was her and two other lawyers from her firm, as well as a fourth lawyer from another firm, who were representing Sussman. And just as soon as he gets sworn in, immediately after that, this Catherine Rumler then addresses the committee and says, oh, I just want to remind you that there could be certain issues here with classified information, and also certain issues with attorney-client privilege. In other words, my client may not be able to answer some of your questions because of attorney-client privilege. Why is Rimler there? She's there to protect Obama. And Sussman is a guy who could get him into a lot of trouble. And she did intervene quite a few times in the interview, in the questioning, to keep him from answering questions. In fact, one point, even taking him out of the room to give him some advice outside the room. They actually said, no, we need to leave the room. We need to go out and talk. She takes him out for a talk because of things he was voluntarily saying. So clearly, she was there to protect Obama. And Sussman, this, again, I can only conclude that this guy was lying. And he gets caught, stumbling and having to backtrack. He says things that contradict himself throughout the interview. And so let's just go through some of these things. I think you'll be very enlightened. So he says that it was the DNC that contacted him on or about April the 30th of 2016 about their system being hacked. He says that it was he who recommended CrowdStrike, but he said it was the DNC that contracted with them. But he did call Sean Henry at that time to give him a heads up that the DNC would likely be contacting him about this issue they were having. He also says that that throughout this entire testimony, he's asked this in multiple different ways. He says in every different way and form that he is asked that the DNC, along with himself, offered the FBI any opportunity they wanted to mirror the servers, take the servers, send FBI agents on site, full access to the DNC servers. According to Sussman, he and the DNC told the FBI on multiple occasions, you can have full access to whatever you want. That totally contradicts Jay Johnson and Comey, who say, nope, the DNC wouldn't let us look at those servers. Well, Sussman's testimony completely contradicts that 1,000% over and over again. He was asked it by all four of the people who questioned him, including the bug-eyed fool, Adam Schiff. He says that there were two early meetings right after he was contacted by the DNC and they contacted CrowdStrike. And there was two meetings. CrowdStrike is there, he's there, and that means Sean Henry is there. Sussman is there. Two FBI agents are there. This woman who's was running the DNC at that time, the interim in between Wasserman Schultz and Brazil, was there. And he says in those first two meetings, in fact, in the very first meeting, he says that they offered the FBI in both of those meetings, including the first one, anything they wanted. That's his words. He said at some point that the FBI, the second time they show up, they have 2 pages with 17 items of things they would like. And Sussman says at some point that that CrowdStrike did deliver materials to the FBI. Sussman goes on to say that he also had contacted the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, and other government agencies, and had meetings with them as well over this particular so-called hacking issue. Now he says that the FBI told him in the very first meeting when they walked in the door, they said, oh yeah, well, it's probably the Russians, because we've actually been following this. And I think he was even suggesting that even with the DNC, that they had been following whether or not there may have been people trying to hack the DNC. And so he says it was the FBI who came in on day one, before CrowdStrike ever did a single thing, Just in the two meetings. In the first meeting they come in, and they're having this conversation, when everybody's there around the table, and the FBI says, oh yeah, well, it's probably the Russians. Yeah, they've been involved in this kind of stuff. We've been tracking this kind of stuff, and it's the Russians. We're almost sure of it. That's what the FBI said in the very first minutes of the opening minutes of the first meeting. Sussman also admits to working with the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, and he says that he told them that he was hearing, Sussman says he's telling the CIA that he was hearing of contacts between Russian entities and people in the Trump organization. He says that that was in February of 2017. February of 2017, he says that he told the CIA that he was hearing of contacts between Russian entities and people in the Trump organization. Now, keep in mind, he gives us this date of February 2017 when he actually tells them this. But he also says that, well, I'll get to that in a second. I don't want to get out of place here. Now, he says that he got this information about people in the Trump organization having contacts with Russians from a client of his. A client of his. He would not name the client. He was asked if it was Christopher Steele or Fusion GPS, and he said no. So it was someone other than Christopher Steele or Fusion GPS that was giving him this information. A client. And he keeps referring to this client throughout his interview, whose name he will not say. Now, he says he did his initial outreach to the Central Intelligence Agency in early December of 2016. So it almost contradicts himself. He says he first went to the CIA in February of 2017, but then he turns around a few paragraphs later and says that he did his initial outreach to the CIA in December of 2016, and he says he started getting this information in the summer of 2016. In the midsummer of 2016, his client was giving him this information. And then he's asked, why did you sit on it for 6 months or 5 months or whatever? He says, it was really when the ICA was put out, and that's what motivated him to go give this information to the CIA, despite the fact that the dates don't line up. But that's what he's saying in his testimony. Yeah, and here's this statement here he makes about the FBI initially at that first meeting, tells with CrowdStrike and the DNC and himself, where he says that the FBI said that they believed it was the Russians that breached the server, the DNC server. That's what they said on the very first meeting. So it came from the FBI first, if you believe Sussman. And this guy lies his ass off, I can tell you that. He also says that he got a visit from 2 FBI counterintelligence agents in October of 2016. And he says that the reason that he got a visit from 2 counterintelligence agents in October 2016 is because sometime in September of 2016, the DNC believed that their offices may have been bugged. And so they brought in some company to check for bugs. And of course, counterintelligence, FBI got wind of this somehow, and they decided to get involved. And then at some point, they determined that there were no listening devices were found. And so these 2 FBI counterintelligence agents come to Sussman to brief him on the fact that, well, we didn't find any listening devices in the DNC. And he says that those 2 counterintelligence agents, he can't remember their names, but he's sure that it wasn't, Strzok was not one of them. Yes, he says it was the ICA that triggered him to contact the CIA in February after hearing about it in the summer of 2016. Again, just like Downer, sitting on it. Why? None of their answers make sense. He also says that he told James Baker, General Counsel of the FBI, about these things in September of 2016. He says he had a phone call in December of 2016 after the election with James Baker on a follow-up issue with Trump-Russia collusion. He also, of course, admits to giving information to General Counsel Baker, the thumb drive and the documents. He admits to that. But here's the part of it that you'll really love. He also admits that prior to going to any of these people, CIA, FBI, or anyone else, he was going to the media. Admits, he said, oh yeah. He said, I was giving information, sharing information with the media during the 2016 election. I shared information with the New York Times, the Washington Post, and he said I was giving most of this information to them in the late summer. It was sometime in late September and throughout October that he was giving Trump-Russia collusion information to the New York Times and the Washington Post, information he was getting from his client, who he will not name. I'm pretty sure Mr. Durham would like to find out the name of that client if he doesn't already know. Yep, that's right. He was going to the media, giving them information on behalf of the rotten Reverend Clinton, of course. And then after doing that, up until late October of 2016, just before the election, then he starts going to the FBI and the CIA. Says he met with Christopher Steele in early August. Says he was contacted by Mark Elias and said, hey, this guy Christopher Steele is in town. I want you to have a meeting with him. He's going to be over in about an hour. I just want you to kind of feel him out, see what you think about him. And at this point, Sussman is saying that he did not know that Steele or Confusion GPS were actually even working for the campaign. Or no, Christopher Steele. He knew about Fusion GPS, but he did not know that Christopher Steele was working for Fusion GPS. When Simpson and Peter Frisch come walking in with Christopher Steele an hour after he gets his phone call from Mark Elias, and they sit down and have this conversation, he's supposed to be sizing up Steele. And he says at that time, he had no knowledge that Steele had been, and keep in mind, this is in August. Steele was brought in, if we're being told the truth, in April. But yet he's saying even as late as August, when this meeting occurs, he has no clue who Steele is. Never met him. Doesn't know he's working for Fusion GPS, who's, by the way, working for the campaign. Doesn't know any of it. And Simpson and Frisch never tell him. He says he has 3 more meetings with Simpson and Frisch, and they never tell him that Steele's working for them, and essentially him in the campaign. Remember, Michael Sussman is the general counsel for the Hillary Clinton campaign. He says in August of 2016, when he meets Christopher Steele, he says he doesn't see any documents. There's no documents at all. He hasn't seen the dossier. He's had no documents or Steele's memos or anything that he wrote. He said he saw that stuff for the first time when BuzzFeed published it. But he's a very, very slippery character, Mr. Sussman. Because he specifically said didn't have any documents, didn't have any memos, didn't have any of that stuff, didn't see any of that stuff, leading you to believe he didn't know anything. But then Kash Patel pushes on him and says, well, you say you didn't have any documents, you didn't have any memos, you didn't have anything like that, but did you know? At which point Sussman's forced to admit the truth. He says, oh yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I did know about the information in the dossier, but I never had any documents. He tried to squeeze that one by, but Kash Patel locked him in and got him to admit that he knew about all of the information. He just never had any documents. Do you believe that? I don't. And then when Kash Patel pushed on him, said, okay, well, if you weren't getting any documents, you weren't getting, how did you know all this information about everything that was going on, even though you didn't have any documents or memos or anything like that? How did you know? And his response was, oh, that's privileged information. Can't talk about it. Privileged information about how he learned about all of this information. Yeah. Can you say rotten Reverend Clinton? There you go. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're out of time. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See ya. Bye.